Welcome to the GoPROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to Go Pro with Jeremy Torisk. All right, everybody. Thank you for showing up today to the GoPROcast. I've got a special guest, this person that I actually went to for advice when I first started my career in this industry only about a year and a half ago. How time flies. But let's get right to the intros. This is my friend, Mike Mooney. Mike Mooney, it'd be easy to say that his career has been going around in circles for nearly 30 years because of his interest and his involvement in the professional motorsports industry. He's built award-winning sponsorship campaigns in NASCAR, IndyCar, and F1 for brands like Mercedes-Benz, 3M, Eli Lilly, and Walmart. He's a speaker. He uses lessons learned from working with champions who fine-tune their high-performance vehicles to now working on different high-performance vehicles, like people. Mike is an accelerator who focuses on creating people-centered speed through mindset, reputation, and continuous improvement. Help me welcome my friend, Mr. Mike Mooney.
Hey, Jeremy, what is going on, man?
Man, I tell you, it's been shaking and baking this last few weeks. I've really been
shake and bake.
Really, I'm going to throw a bunch of car quotes at you. So, how are I like to start the show off with kind of and what do you call that? A tribute to my friend Steve Udelberg and say, tell me something good, my friend.
Steve's one of the greats, isn't he? I just saw him on a webinar earlier in the week, man, and had a really good one-to-one with him there. He is awesome. So what is good? Is that your question? Tell me something.
What's going on, man? Tell us what's going good in your life right now.
Oh my gosh. I tell you, I'm really excited about this particular season. I'm a big believer in looking at life through the lens of, have I been buried or have I been planted? And I believe that this last year and a half, and we've all been going through it, I've been planting, and I'm seeing in this last probably 2.5 months, sort of the fruits of that coming back, and live speaking events that are coming in and virtual speaking events. I just kicked off a 7-week Power Shift Accelerator program for a financial services company for some of their executives. So I'm super excited about how that's going on. Yeah, man. So, I mean, things are really good. It's just building and exploring and testing and trying, and the stuff I love to do.
We've had a long enough runway to do this planting. So if anyone's been kind of sitting around seeing what's going to happen, that was kind of their bad, right?
I think a lot of us were sort of in those moments of let's have a wait and see. I think early on, there was a bit of that, okay, let's kind of wait and see how all this unfolds. But there's a certain point, man, and this, where you've got to say, okay, I've waited and I've seen as long as I can. Now I've got to just, keep doing what I believe to be true, and maybe adapt to the new world that we have, right?
Yeah, that's the key word I was looking for. And speaking of adapt, did you grow up in North Carolina, in that area?
Ooh, no, man. I'm one of those damn Yankees. I grew up on Long Island, New York.
Wow.
Came to North
Long
Carolina
Island. You've been there way too long because you didn't say Long Island.
Long Island. That's it. Long Island. Yes.
And then, so how did you get involved with the motorsports industry then from Long Island?
Yeah, man. So I went to college in North Carolina at Elon University. I had a communications degree, and through a couple of different jobs starting out. Actually, my first job out of college, I was the assistant manager in the shoe department in a Kmart in Hickory, North Carolina. So I was like one of the original Al Bundys back in the day. Now that'll date you if you remember Al Bundy.
Remember him well.
So I was there, and then man, I was fortunate. I got a job at a public relations agency in Charlotte, and they just happened to be in motorsports. And man, that was what started my career and how I got involved. Starting in NASCAR, and again, as you had mentioned so kindly in the intro, have had the opportunity to work in NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, NHRA drag racing, just some, great sports with some amazing people.
And what were the major differences, do you think, between the different types of racing? I don't know what you call it. You have the open wheel versus the
Yeah.
NASCAR type stock car. Was there
Yeah.
a different attitude with those types of race companies, or I don't even know what the word I'm
The
looking for is?
teams, right? I mean, you got the teams and the drivers. And man, I'll tell you what, a racer, this is what I found. A racer is a racer is a racer. Whether they have fenders on the cars, they have no fenders and they're open wheel, or they're straight liners, drag racing. They want to win. And whether that's going to be winning in, 3.9 seconds going down a top wheel dragster, or if it's going to be 3 hours in a stock car or, an open wheel.
Right, or
Doesn't matter,
who can
man.
drink this carton of milk faster, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And it's not just the drivers, man. I mean, it's the crew, right? It's the crew chief. It's everyone. That's what I've seen from top to bottom in this sport. Whether you're wrenching on the car, or you're behind the wheel, or you're holding the fuel can on pit road, or you're sitting up on top of the pit box crunching numbers,
Yeah.
They have this insatiable desire to kick everyone else's ass and win. That's it.
Yep, and then that kind of attitude and drive would serve a lot of people well in every walk of life. You don't have to be behind a steering wheel, but it helps when you have 900 horsepower at your big toe. All right,
helps a little bit. But that's like, where I was saying, having the opportunity to have worked around these championship drivers and teams for these years and learn the lessons and what it takes to stay at that championship level as they're working on their high performance vehicles, those race cars. But that was kind of like my aha moment when I realized, man, I've got a whole set of tools that I can actually help and work on high performance vehicles, which are people,
yes.
right? So it was an opportunity for me to kind of pivot into my professional speaking life and world and coaching and the work that I'm doing today, man, which led us to meet each other when you were first starting out, which is so awesome.
It is the degrees, right, of separation, because being on Steve's show led me to meet Larry, which led me to meet Kevin, which led me to go to NSA Carolinas, and that's how I met you, Stan, and a bunch of other great people. And speaking of that kind of proximity, being in that race industry for so long, you ended up meeting the Mattioli family and getting involved from after your race career, being involved with the race industry, transferring to your own consulting career, and you had a chance to work on the Pocono Organics farms. What did that mean to you to be asked to be involved with that project so early on in their existence, which was like A1, right?
Yeah, it was, man. And that's it's a great story, man. I literally, and the metaphor is true. That's like a 25-year harvest, right? But in a relationship. So I had the opportunity to have met Doc Mattioli. Doc and his wife Rose built and ran Pocono Raceway, one of the only family-run still racetrack in the country for NASCAR events, and just an amazing family. You talk about people that don't let things get in their way, people who are just, going forward all the time. That's them. So I'd known them for, the majority of my career in motorsports. And it just so happened that when I was making my pivot out of racing, I was at Roush Fenway Racing at the time on the team property side. I had mentioned to one of the family members that happened to be the CEO of the track that I was going to be pivoting out, and said, "Hey, if you guys need any help or anything, let me know." And they said, "You need to talk with my mom, Louie, Mary Louise, but Louie is how she goes. She's the chairwoman of the board." They were starting a new business, and it happened to be a regenerative organic farm. And wow, I want to learn more about this. And it's really about the power of soil health and the desperate need we have in this world right now for soil health, for the food that we are desperately needing, the healthy food. So I saw what was going on there and the opportunity to work with some amazing people that I've known and they've known me. And now we're almost 4 years into this, and we are Pocono Organics is one of the largest regenerative organic certified farms in North America. We're actually the largest in the United States, and we're the first and only in the world regenerative organic certified hemp grower. So we've got a lot of really cool things happening up there.
So just take a second and expand on what does regenerative mean?
I know, easy for you to say, right? I know, man. So here's the thing. You've got different types of ag. You've got the conventional agriculture, which is, high tillage, monocropping. They grow like one crop only. That's all they grow. They're using pesticides and herbs, all these chemicals, right? Regenerative organic is the complete opposite, because the United Nations said that we have less than 60 planting cycles left on Earth before the soil in which we're growing our food will be depleted of all the nutrients we need to actually grow the food. I mean, we're losing like 40 soccer fields of soil a minute because of conventional farming. So regenerative organic is about soil health first and foremost. So it's like low till. It's no pesticides, no herbicides. It's really about how do we strengthen the soil, because what happens then, man, so here's the interesting like chain of events, right? Is that when you get the soil in a healthy place, it's able to sequester more carbon from the air, right? There's the huge environmental atmosphere issue we're dealing with carbon in the air. So carbon sequestration becomes a huge component of regenerative organic agriculture, because the soil is able to capture and keep all of it under there. So, when you're tilling, you're releasing all of that back up into the atmosphere again, all that carbon. So it's really about healthy soil equals healthy food equals healthy people.
I love that. I love that. I love the nice linear, from start to finish there. It's nice and neat. And I could go on for probably another hour, have a couple of shows just on that topic alone. But I want to move on to more what we are kind of involved with, which is really helping the people.
Yes.
And so your book, Reputation Shift, is interesting, because I would say that we live in a much different world right now. And so you wrote a book about how important your reputation is, more than ever. Is it more about from starting off how important it is, or is it more about, or does it deal at all with damage control? Like which aspects do you think your book or your specialty is?
Well, I'd say yes to that. And I have to give a shout out of gratitude to see, I'm looking at your set behind you there, and there's my book on your shelf, man. I appreciate that very much. So the book was written really from this place of recognition, like you had mentioned, man, that we are living in a time when our reputations have never been as valuable, but because of the instant connectivity in this world that we live in, our reputations have never been as fragile or vulnerable, quite honestly. And in the years that I spent in motorsports, dealing with crisis situations, and reputation repair and damage, whether it was with, driver fatalities or fan injuries or sponsor bankruptcies, or just
Jimmy Spencer,
driver saying this knucklehead things on national TV, right? I kept coming back to this question, Jeremy, and I'm going to ask it of you. So I get to flip it on you a little bit here and ask you a question. But the question that came back and became the catalyst for my book, Reputation Shift, was, how much is your reputation worth?
Well, I think that in today's economy, the kind of the monetary value is the connection. Yeah. So I would say it's probably worth more than anything. If you had to list the priorities of what's important, your reputation precedes you, I think, in a lot of ways. But there's so much stuff that never goes away online. So being the number one believer in ROR, in return on relationships, I've got to believe that reputation has to rank up there in the top one or two things.
Sure. But so if you were to say there's a dollar value for it, then I'm not going to let you off the hook. I agree with everything you just said there, but could you put a dollar value to that for you?
I mean, it's millions of dollars. Really? I mean, I couldn't say exactly to the dollar, but if over a lifetime, you're going to earn millions of dollars if you do it right. And, most people will earn $1 million in their lifetime. And I if you have a good reputation, that could 10x easy.
Yeah. So what I love about that question is it gives us pause, to really like look at reputation through a different lens. And when I ask that when I'm speaking, to different groups, I usually get three answers to that. Now I'll get the financial people will say, oh, well, similar to you, right? When your answer was, oh, it's 10x my current salary. That's how much it is, And I love it because, you want to quantify that based on the future, outcome of your reputation. But I tell them, I still think you're undervaluing it. The second answer I get is it's priceless. Okay. No, I get it. Yeah, it is. But the third one is what I get the most satisfaction out of is, Mike, I never thought of it that way. And that then allows us to shift our perspective on the value and the power of a reputation, because oftentimes we don't recognize its value until after we've paid a price. So that was the whole idea behind this book is shifting, and that's kind of the play on words, right? Reputation shift. In racing, you have to shift to move forward. What I'm trying to do is to get people to shift their perspective on reputation to go and move away from the traditional reactive now what mindset to a more intentional approach that's values based, where we can, with consistency and time, actually design a reputation that we want to put forth in the world. That's what this is about. So yes, your question was, is it about building it? Yes, it is, intentionally and values based on your values. And is there damage control? Yes. I also have in the book plans for when the crap does hit the fan.
Yeah.
What do you do? And then how do you come back from it?
Yeah. So that was kind of one of the things I was thinking of is with social media, everything is documented and commented on and shared and posted. And so what would your advice be to a person, I'd probably going to be a younger person who, let's say if I was a teenager now, and then I was 25 and 10 years from now, if I had posted the things that I did when I was 15 to 25, by the time I was 25, I would be really at a disadvantage, let's just say.
Well
maybe
said.
maybe not quite behind bars, but at a time where I want to start a business or start looking to join a corporate, Fortune 500 company, what would you say to the typical person who has maybe a racy, and I'll say racy because you're a race car, enthusiast, but a flavorful social media, collection, but now they want to start a business and they want to go work for corporate, or they want to be a fireman like my son, where the government is going to check, or the company is going to check, your clients are going to check. What do you tell them?
Absolutely. Well, here's the interesting thing. When I speak with groups about this, typically they do exactly what you did there, which was gravitate towards what would you tell the young kids who are coming up, which is fantastic, because we want to get this in their minds at an early age, that your reputation speaks for you when you aren't there to speak for yourself, and the doors that it can open for you, or equally padlock shut.
Yeah.
Right?
And nothing ever goes away.
And it doesn't. And you don't even know what's being said. You don't know the opportunities that you're missing. I mean, have you ever had that? And ask your audience to think for a second. Somebody asks you, hey, what do you know about Mike? I'm thinking about calling him for this. And if we didn't have a good interaction and my reputation wasn't very good, you may say, I probably wouldn't go in that direction. Well, guess what? I missed a huge opportunity and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Right? So, but here's the interesting thing, Jeremy, where I was going with that with the kids, but it's equally, I think, across the board for us all, because 56% of adults don't even think about the ramifications and impact of their social media posts. So you think it's just for the kids because the frontal lobes haven't fully developed yet, and they want a YOLO, right? We're all living in the moment. Hey, okay, that's great.
And FOMO, fear of
FOMO, exactly FOMO. Right. Every other 4-letter acronym. But here's what I would ask folks to do, and I lay this out in the book. It's one of the strategies that I lay out in there, and it's called visualize your instant replay. Okay. And man, you're a sports guy. I love the instant replay. I
Yeah.
do. Because how many times have you sat there and been like, oh my gosh, that ball was in, the slide was whatever. And then you look at it from a different perspective, and it's
Right.
slowed down.
And what is that called?
The instant replay.
Visualize
your instant replay.
I like it. That one's hot. That's
So,
setting the walls on fire.
so what that does is it actually forces us to stop for a moment. And that's the big thing, man. I'm trying to create these intentional moments where we can actually like slow down to think before we rush into act. So by visualizing your instant replay, it goes like this. I'm about to hit post on something here. Let me just stop and think, how is that going to look from my family's perspective? How would that look from the work perspective? How would that look from, right? And you start going through the different aspects in your life. Like, how could this be misconstrued? How could this be looked at differently? That's not going to represent my best self, my highest self in this moment. And I tell you, man, I do that myself. I do that on a regular basis, of looking and going, it may look funny from this perspective, but maybe not so much from over here.
Yeah. Is the chuckles, a couple likes you're going to get from the people that you're trying to impress, worth the people who may not get it?
Yeah.
Or will be offended by it.
And look, I mean, to that point, dude, I gotta honestly, we're living in a world right now where it's the land of the easily offended. So somebody will be offended by something. My encouragement is just to kind of minimize that. Like, don't give them the fuel, for the trolls out there that are just trying to cut the legs out of people or out from under them who are out there living life.
And so to have these people tell you these things, you have something that's one of my favorite things that I've heard anyone ever used this phrase as, for people who you allow into your circle, right? The people who you surround yourself with, you call them your spotters, right?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about what that means to you, because I love that turn of phrase. And I believe that I got a very tight circle for that reason.
Absolutely, man. Trying to think of how I want to position. Okay, so this actually happened. This is a good example of it. I was coming out of the gym a couple of years ago. I was actually writing it. I actually have this in the book. And I got a text from a buddy of mine who said, hey, man, I don't know what's wrong with you right now, but you got to be careful with what you post on social media. People troll for these things. I'm just looking out for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? Did my social media accounts get hacked? I don't think I put anything up there that was bad, Well, it turns out that there was another Mooney in his contacts, and it was the wrong Mooney, right?
Okay.
But the point of it, though, is that he was there looking out for me. Now, if you go back to racing, most people think that the most vital job on the team is the driver or the pit crew or the crew chief.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if you can't keep the car on the track, crew chief, driver, pit crew don't matter. So the most vital role on that race team is actually the spotter. And for some people who aren't familiar with that role or with racing, is the spotter stands high atop the racetrack property, and they have binoculars and radio communication to the driver, so that when that driver's on the track going 200 miles an hour, focused on their goal, which is, protecting their position and trying to move forward, that's all they're focused on. It's that spotter that tells them what's in their blind spots, right? The places that if they get up into can take not only them, but others out of the race.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important in our lives right now. We've got so many things going on. Look, we're all human. We all have blind spots. It doesn't make us bad people.
Right.
But if we're constantly running in these blind spots, there are going to be implications to your reputation. So why not, like you said, get that close circle of people and say, look, man, I need you to be my spotter.
Yeah. Yeah. People willing to be there for me, people I trust, that I know if they're telling me something, it's coming from the right place.
Man, you hit it on the head, bud. Trust. Like, you've got to get people who are willing to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we get people just tell you, okay, Jeremy, hey, it's only this one time. It's not that big a deal. You need someone to say, dude, look, this is the 10th time I've seen it happen, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But if you know their intention, right? And that's the key thing, man. Like intention is so important. And I look at it this way, and I'll share this with you, and I say this to friends, and so they know where my intention is. It's simply this: I'm here for your greatest good, and I mean you no harm. So
Yeah.
anything else I say to you, Jeremy, you
Right.
know my intention is I mean you no harm, and I'm here for your greatest good. So, brother, take this in that light.
Yeah. And I just heard this yesterday, this phrase that I love. Kate, who started Luminary in New York City, a club for mostly for women, social to have events at, but it's open to anybody. But she does a lot of events for women, and she's an amazing businesswoman. But she had an interview yesterday, and they said, when you get the report, check the reporter. You know, look
Ooh,
at don't focus on
I,
the reporter. So,
I like
because
that.
you read the headline and you just all all of a sudden go, oh crap, I'm off the reservation, but
Yeah.
check the reporter. What
Yeah.
are their, you know, what are their angles? Is it
Yeah.
somebody who's got some, you know, axe to grind? Is it somebody who's jealous? Is it somebody who's overzealous? Is it somebody who doesn't really want you to succeed? Is it, are they telling you this because, and for her, I think her specific example was, I think a company said to her, you're great. You're a person that drives 100 miles an hour, let's say. But the company, we run at 30 and you're just too much. So you need to back it off. And
Right.
then you go, wow, maybe I need to back it off. But then you go, wait a minute, maybe it's just them who don't want to keep up with me. Maybe because I've had that where I was outpacing my bosses
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
just didn't want to do the work, you
Yeah.
know?
That's it. Well, it reminds me of the movie years ago. Tom Hanks, John Lovitz were in it. The movie Big, and there's this moment where Tom Hanks is in the office and he's just cranking out work. It's a story of like this kid who becomes an adult like overnight, and he's just like loving the work and going. And John Lovitz like looks over the cube and goes, hey, fella, pace yourself, pace yourself.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Johnny's toy box. Okay.
Exactly.
Turn the thing. That's pretty easy.
That's it. So I think, that's such a great line, to check the reporter, like before you believe the report,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's easy for us to just believe it.
Yeah.
But man, it's unfortunate because we do live in a world where people do have their own motives, where people do have their own
Yeah.
agendas,
That's right.
and
Brenda's right.
right, right, and they can use the cloak of the company or management or the executive group, as that sort of way to veil their own personal, um, you know,
Yeah.
attacks. I mean, it's man, I hate that stuff. I'm sorry. I know it happens, but it's like, why live that way? Why do you have to live that way? How much energy and time and it's
Yep, and
wasted.
we've got people in our lives you're gonna have, even if you have the small circle of your spotters or your trusted circle of trust or whatever,
Yeah.
you belong to a couple associations. I know we belong to NSA Carolinas together.
Yeah.
You're president or vice president,
President
which
elect. President elect. I'm
president
not.
elect
Yeah. I'm
for
not
next term. You'll be
Let's not
president.
dethrone Stan Phelps. I don't want him
Dan
coming here.
Phelps is current president,
Right.
because that's
Right.
a funny organization because you have immediate past president, and president elect at any one time, right?
You do. You do.
So you're a president elect for next term, but so you're part of the board. You're
Yeah.
gonna have planning and stuff. So you have this other groups of people who you have no kind of control
Hmm.
in of their agendas and of their viewpoints and of their feelings,
Yeah.
and but you have to let them into that circle for the time that you're serving.
Yeah.
So you have to really open that circle up sometimes, let people in to work with them extensively for the
Mhm.
better of the group. And sometimes you just got to work with people that aren't fun to work with. And so figuring out your reputation shift and knowing how you handle those situations is going to maybe backfire on you down the road
Mhm.
when you blow up or something at a public function that somebody had the last straw. Keeping those emotions in check has always been my really battle. I have a hard time with that.
Is that
So
right?
that's you're looking at the book always and thinking about the whole point of your business is
Yeah.
keeping that reputation how up in your mind does
Yeah.
help me count to maybe 6. I don't think I ever made it to 10, but it gives me a head start.
Well, and I love that. I'm grateful that the book has served you as your book has served me, which is great. So thank you for sending that my way. I loved it. It's just this real and raw lessons of life, and I think that's the beauty of the world that we live in right now as content creators and people who are willing to step up on a platform and share a message. It's both like the most rewarding yet scariest thing at the same time. At least in my opinion, I would have people ask me and say, Mike, is it tough shooting those videos? Is it tough doing it? And I've said, no, the videos are no, that's easy. So the tough part is hitting post.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
Because now it's
I've
out
gotten
there in
over
the
that.
world.
I've gotten over it. I love V. Who's that guy? V. Something. I never can remember his name. He's the most popular social guy. Something V.
Gary V.
Gary V.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings is, because I'm a coach, right? I coach kids about business, and I say they get all in their head about coming up with content every day because you have to post every single day. That's what I do. That's what I tout.
Yeah.
That's what I learned from the Noodlebergs is post every single day. But Gary V made it easy for me because I don't have to come up or create content every day.
Yeah.
I just have to document something that I did every day. You do stuff every day.
Yeah.
And it's something is worth documenting.
Absolutely.
And you put it on there and you hit post, and you don't know who is going to see it. You don't know how it's going to hit somebody.
Yep.
And so if you're just consistent about it and you get that rhythm.
Yeah. Well, as both of us being drummers, we know the power of rhythm and having that steady beat, and I'm a big believer in sharing the journey, right? Of just the journey that we're going on, because to your point, you don't know what somebody will see and hitting them at a moment when they need it.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in the universe conspiring for us. And there are times, have you ever had this happen when you read a post, you see something, you're like, oh man, that was just on time.
There, baby. That says it all. That's exactly what that is.
Well, hang on. here's another good one for you to check out. Epictetus, The Art of Living.
Yeah.
So
this Stoics knew a thing or two.
It's true, brother. It's true. So I mean, I just really love the fact that we live at a time where we have the opportunity to create and share and ignite light in this world at a time when it's just so desperately needed. But it takes courage, man. Like the stuff you're doing here takes courage.
Well, it takes a lot of energy, that's for sure. And you're my kind of guy because we have that same, never say die attitude, and also spread the wealth and invite the family in because there's plenty for everyone.
Without a doubt. And for a guy like you who only sleeps like 3 hours a night, I mean, it's amazing you have so much energy as it is, man.
It is amazing. Everyone says it. It's not healthy, but I was happened last night at 2:00 to bed and 5 to wake up. I shifted a little bit. Normally it's midnight and I wake up around 3, but just my body. I don't set an alarm clock and I don't try to get up. It just when I'm up, time to go. Let's get it.
That's that again. The beauty of it is people try to say, well, no, you're supposed to do this and supposed to. But I don't know what I'm supposed to do, man. I just do. I think that's why I think animals. I was thinking about this. I mean, they got it made, right? They don't have a choice. They're born as an animal. They just do what they're born to do. Like humans, we're born, but we look around and be like, I want to be like that. Why can't I fit into this? I want to do this. And suddenly we lose the whole identity of who the heck we are.
Yeah. And to your notes, when I asked for guests to come on, and your intentional presence, you're being more interested than being interesting. Intentional action drives clarity. All these things that you're putting into your core values allows you to do the things that actually don't make it so hard to do. And you don't want to be like any other people. You just want to be helpful in a service to other people. Right. And add value to other people's lives. I call this a get to life right now. It took me 50 years to get here, but I'm glad I got here.
Amen. Amen.
And those things are in my life every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I'm a big believer in the visual anchors, so that last point you made about intentional action drives clarity. That's actually, I have like on my desk every day on a card. because the things that I'm doing today, and this is why it matters, man, is, and for your listeners and viewers that are checking this out, oh, there we go. I love it. You may have caught a vision of your future self, and you're just like, "Whoa, this could be amazing." And that wasn't by mistake. It wasn't
Right.
by mistake that you caught a glimpse of this vision. Okay. The problem is we diminish the value between our own ears, and then we get overwhelmed by the thought of, "There's no way I could become this. There's no way I can build this business. There's no way I can." No, there is. There
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But it takes you taking that first step. And guess what? And this is what I've believed to be true, and I guarantee it's happened in your life and anyone else who stepped into a life of purpose, is that once you take that first step, you take that second step, and guess what? Step 3 and 4 become a little bit more clear, right? The people start showing up, the experience becomes, shows up, the courage starts to show up, right? And then you get to step 4, and then more starts to be revealed,
Revealed is a good word. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I believe that's what it is. It's this journey that we're so focused on. I've got to get from here to here, but man, I don't know. Take the
Yeah.
step.
That's the living daily in your true, I guess, purpose, and just living by your passion.
It's
When you're
authenticity,
doing
man.
something that you don't want to do, shouldn't be doing, and people just put, I think they just put too much value in supposed tos. I'm supposed to do this,
Yeah,
and you don't.
yeah.
You're supposed to do. It's very clear what you're supposed to do. If it's not sitting in your heart right, then you're not supposed to be doing that. Now, people paint themselves into a corner. Most people do, unfortunately, where they have to because the bills and they.
Yep.
But I would tell everyone, turn on Dave Ramsey, go to those baby steps, and it took me to 50 to get here,
Yeah.
but at least I'm not 60.
Well,
You know,
and that's it. That's it. And for the people who say, "Oh, you know what? It's already passed me by. I had the chance. I blew it. I didn't take it."
never until you're underground, baby.
That's it. That's it. Satchel Paige, who, so I was a pitcher growing up and played a lot of baseball up into college, and I love Satchel Paige. And he was in the Negro leagues before we had, Jackie Robinson with the whole integration of the teams. And a reporter, he was doing like a press interview, and this reporter asked him, this was like in like later on in years, said, do you ever wish that you were born at a different time? Do you think that you were really born, too soon? And he looked at the reporter and said, "I was right on time."
Yeah.
And that was actually the name of it, the title of his autobiography, Right on Time. And I believe we're all right on time, but there's a point where you've got to act. You've got
Yeah.
to actually take that leap into faith. And I'm not getting
No,
secular with faith. I'm just talking about faith in your creator, faith in the universe. Hey, faith in yourself, for
that's
crying
right.
out loud.
Yeah, exactly. Faith, because you're whatever it is that's out there telling you and filling you with that spirit, you got to trust it. And that's trusting yourself, Uh,
Yes. Yes.
we could go on for hours.
Well, I got a story about that. Can I share something real
Sure,
quick with you on that?
absolutely.
So when I was making my pivot out of racing to start this new world, man, and it was new. I mean, you talk about going from an industry in a world with 25 quarter century plus of like relational equity, the knowledge to do the job with your eyes closed, all of that. I just felt like I was sleepwalking at this certain point in my life, and I'm like, that's just not what it's about. And
Yeah.
and I had written the book, and I was really like getting ready to make this pivot, but I knew that I was going to, I'm responsible for a family. My wife and I, we have 3 kids, and I can't just like throw it all in and say, I'm going to be a speaker now, and this word cash flow, never really heard of that word before, man. Because, the biweekly steady just kept showing up. Right.
Yeah.
So what I did is before I pivoted, I had 6 people that I spoke with. I had handshake deals. They said, "Mike, when you make that jump, we'll bring you on, do some consulting work to help you get the cash flow going. That'll help you get rolling." I'm like, fantastic. This is great. Go home, tell my wife, "Baby, it's all going to be fine. I've got this, set up. I've planned it. I've made it work." Well, man, I did it. I made the jump. Make the phone calls. How many of those 6 do you think showed up?
Because you're telling it on this show, which deals with adversity and overcoming adversity, I'm going to probably guess goose eggs.
Bingo. Where's your little rain, the fire drops there?
That's not,
Yeah,
I need tears for that one. That's not a good thing.
it, dude. It was a round number. It was a round
Gosh, a
number.
round number.
So I had to then go tell my wife, my partner in crime.
And how long ago was this?
2018, February.
Wow.
February of 2018.
Wow. Very recent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I had to tell her, these didn't come in. None of them came in. And she said, well, what are we going to do when we get to this date when sort of like our reserves are going to be, depleting? And I gave her an answer I'm sure no partner ever wants to hear. And I just said, I don't know.
At least you're honest about it.
I said, I don't know. I said, I'll get another job. I'll go to Lowe's. I'll do something. But I said, but here's the thing. And this was the lesson, man, that I didn't even know until that moment. Because I really believe it's these times when you are at those darkest points that you find things in you that you didn't even know you had. You never even knew you had.
You know, the funny thing is, you said something. I'm searching through my notes right here that I forgot to say. And I can't remember it. It's that opportunities come disguised in
adversity,
or
yeah.
That's exactly. It's very deep because it's so true.
We just have to work through it. Yeah, it's true. So opportunity is often disguised as adversity, in my opinion. And the lesson I learned, and I didn't even realize I was learning it, man.
That's a fire-worthy one. Because it's true. You got to appreciate even the adversities because they're there for a reason.
No experience and no emotion ever wasted. The experience sharpens our resolve. The emotion forges our spirit, right? So I really, at that moment, man, I said to my wife, I said, Krista, here's the thing, babe. If I focus on that date of when the money's going to run out.
It's like when you're skiing and you're not supposed to look at the trees.
Right.
Because you're going to hit the tree.
That's exactly it. I said, I can't focus on that date. All I can do is this. I'm going to squeeze everything. And baby, you have my commitment that I'm going to put everything I've got into today.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get up tomorrow and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it again and again. And I believe in my heart of hearts that when we get to that date, we're going to be in a good spot. Yeah. And wouldn't you know that within 3.5 weeks of doing that work, the Mattiolis showed up with Pocono Organics. Speaking gigs started to come in. People wanted to have me come in and start speaking to their organizations. And suddenly now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, man. And that's, and you didn't know, it's like you're building the plane in the air kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I had the luxury of having all my children pretty much independent. Now I got 3 of them still live with me, but they're adults and they all have their thing going on, everything. So I took a real big chance also by changing industries after 30 years, coincidentally enough, to do this 1.5 years ago. But the risk was lower than ever in my life. I got a sugar mama, my wife's a pretty good real estate agent, right? She does pretty well in this market. She's a broker. So, I can, that's why it's a Get To. I built the Get To studio. I come here every day. I sit down and play these things, 20, 30 minutes a day now. And it's if you take all that pressure off. Now, I mean, I've sacrificed a lot for my family. But now it's to the point where it's secondary. What's first is, and still, I don't have to do anything. And I still work 16 hours a day practically because it's not work. Not a minute of it's work, but it's still a lot to do to fulfill commitments and to, helping people takes a lot of work, so
you know what? And if anything, if you keep in that line of work, you've got amazing job security, man. because we all need it. I have a buddy of mine. We were talking about my podcast that I'm getting ready to roll on. And I said to him, I said, man, it's just too many. There's a lot of inspiration stuff out there right now. I don't know that I just don't know if there's really a need. And he said to me, he goes, Mike, name the day of the week, just one day, just name the day of the week that you don't need to be inspired, that you
Right.
don't need to be lifted up, that you don't need to have somebody kind of get you to a better place of where our hamster wheel minds take us to. And I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. So what you're doing is fantastic in terms of, you might say that the risk was low, but you still had a choice. For me,
Oh
the
yeah.
risk was high and I had a choice because I couldn't. And I remember saying this to myself. I said, dude, you can't sit across the table from your family while we're eating ramen noodles and the light switch isn't doing anything and say, oh, it was because that person didn't show up and that person didn't do what
No.
they said they were going to do. No one held a gun to my head and said, leave racing and pursue this life that you really believe that you were designed for. No, that was my choice. So I got to step up and self-actualize. You made a choice and said, I want to get out here and I want to help people and I want to help ignite more light here. And you know what? That takes a lot of energy and work, regardless of the family risk, man.
Yeah. It's just, I like being uncomfortable. I was in martial arts for
Yes.
most of my life, and getting punched in the face is something I do for fun. And so building a Kajabi course, it's 100 videos I'm building for this thing. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm
Yeah.
doing everything myself because I want to learn how to do things myself so I can then I did a post on this yesterday. Once you do everything, if you wear every single hat yourself, when you go to hire someone to do that job,
Yep.
it's going to increase your empathy because you're going to understand the role and their challenges
That's right.
and
That's right.
limitations of the things that you don't do well. You're going to appreciate them more too for it. So
Absolutely. So let me ask
I
you
love
this
this
then,
stuff.
Jeremy. Let me flip this a little bit, brother. So you're doing all these things, you're getting uncomfortable. What keeps you focused on the value and power of discomfort that allows you to take that next step forward? And so, like, I don't know what this is going to be.
Well, it's all related. Is because I see it. You said earlier about the flash
Mhm.
of vision. I don't have a flash. I have a blinding vision, and I didn't create it. It was implanted in me about 18 months ago.
Mm,
I
mm.
don't know what it is, but it's very clear.
Yeah.
The future is totally unknown, but it's very, very clear to me, and I can feel it in my bones that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm
That's
talking
awesome.
exactly who I'm supposed to be talking to every single day.
Yeah.
This circle that I'm in now, this new 18-month-old people who I deal with every day in these little groups that I belong with, philanthropy speakers, and the FSA. I'm on the board there in Carolina, NSA. Um, it is just so glaringly obvious that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, even though I don't know why.
Yeah.
Right? The
Yeah.
speeches that I'm writing, incorporating my music with my past and trying to turn people on, have a fun, interesting experience with
Yeah.
my keynote.
Yeah.
It's all to touch somebody or something. It's going to save someone's life, maybe
Yeah.
mine, probably mine. Okay.
Oh, 100%.
So
100% for you. So
just,
what you're doing then, man, and I love it because I had that moment as well. It was July 8th, 2006, but it was just a flash. And the rest of it was just like step by step by step over 12 years of figuring. I think it's beautiful that you have this blinding vision. Now you know where you're running toward, which
yeah,
goes to tell you that there isn't one way to find that flow that you're supposed to be in. And now, man, when you talk about tapping into that DNA,
yeah,
ooh, and I'm not talking about your X and Y chromosomes.
no,
I'm talking about your divine natural abilities, those things that you were uniquely wired to
yeah,
do and bring forth, man.
yeah. And I know I sacrificed so much of my life as a child. And then 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was bankrupt, almost homeless again, basically was. The, the banks just didn't kick you out of your house that quickly. Thank God for that. But I've sacrificed and went through so much that when I knew 18 months ago that I was going to do this, I gave my notice twice to quit my job, which was a high-level executive on a national level of telco construction, very high profile,
Yep.
very, you know, it was a lucrative position. I gave my notice 2 times. And both times they said, just give me a little more time. Just that they need a little more time before I leave. They made me a partner once to stay for 10%. And then 3
Wow.
weeks before I was going to be leaving, someone actually made an offer to buy the company. And this is how great those people are. They kept me. They could have just cheated me out of it, but they didn't. And so
Wow.
that made my runway from, 4 or 5 months of savings
Yeah.
to 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
So
It's a blessing, man.
a blessing. I'm supposed to be here. That's why I
Yeah.
have a whole thing that all of this is going to go towards helping kids who don't want to go to college learn how to become business owners or learn about business in a way that they're going to be value added to their, employer or their family as entrepreneurs. I'm doing this. I'm going to help kids all over the country. I'm rolling this out to schools, high schools all over the country in the next 2 years for free.
Dude,
and that's why I'm doing all this.
But you know what's interesting? So I have a good buddy of mine who is way, way, way smarter than me on so many levels. His name is Dov Baron, and he spoke into me at one point about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I was trying to find some clarity on some things. And he said, Mike, go back to when you were a child and think about one thing that you needed that you didn't get when you were a kid. And he said, do you have it? And I said, yeah. And he goes, okay, that's what you're supposed to bring forward. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the idea that your focus is on helping kids who aren't necessarily going to go to college, but want to live a life and have a business. Think about your path. I mean, I read it in your book. You didn't have the traditional path. So you are providing right now for these kids what you needed. Right?
Goosebumps.
Right?
That's a good one. I got to thank your friend for that one. Jeez.
But it's true.
I've never thought of it that way. And I've talked to some pretty deep people who make me go back on myself and talk to myself because get over some issues.
Yeah.
It's helped, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you told me that one.
Again, man, that Dobbs words, and I'm a vehicle, man. I've surrendered to knowing I'm a vehicle here. No pun intended. But but when you were saying that and telling me what you were doing in that vision, I'm like, yeah, duh. I know your path. That's exactly what you needed when you were that age.
Incredible. That's
right?
Incredible. Good times.
It's great.
See, and you say, people, why do they do this thing? Exactly. Who needs to pile this extra stuff? Without a podcast, I kind of agree with you. Like, there's so many, but there's not so many like this one. This is a unique. It's here for a reason. Yes. And you just peel back a level or peel a row of onion peel or peeling back a curve, whatever you want to say. That really just, if you can believe it, fires me up even more.
No, I can't believe that because
that nugget.
I don't know. I mean, I think your volume always goes to 11.
11, exactly. All right, my friend. Listen, we could go on forever. Let's save the next one for when you get your podcast.
I love it.
I'm inviting myself on because that's the kind of guy.
Well, I've already had you down as a guest. So
good. Good, man. Well, let's get tell us one thing or a couple of places that we can find you. Tell us about maybe something that's coming up that we can support you with.
I appreciate that, man. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with folks there. Mike Mooney, you'll see me there. Social media, really simple, at Mike_Mooney on Instagram and Twitter, and then Mike Mooney Speaks on Facebook. So that's what's cooking there. And listen, my ask is that if you're a leader in an organization or you're someone who's coming up through the ranks and recognize that your reputation is one of your greatest assets, then go to my website, pick up the book. If you get it through the website, I personalize it and sign it and send it to you. You can get it on audio book as well on iTunes and Audible and all those good places. So just check it out. Make the investment in yourself. That's what I would say.
Yep, and I can vouch. It's an easy book to get kind of thumb through it. And I'm not a great reader, so I'm a skimmer and a highlighter. And I'll read a book 4 or 5 times and pick up 4 or 5 nuggets every time. And your book is one of those great ones where you could just every time pick it up, turn 3 or 4 pages, and you got something that you can put it down and think about.
Awesome.
So thank you for that.
I'm grateful for that.
On.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys for sticking it out with us. I hope you learned a lot from my friend Mike Mooney. He is an inspiration to me. Again, he's somebody I went to for advice, did not steer me wrong. I'm here in no small part because of people like Mike and Larry Long Jr., Stan, people that we talked about today. So to everybody, if they're listening, thank you. And if you're in my life, you're in there for a reason. I thank you too. All right. We'll see you next time.